evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, BADBABY, and tonight we have with us PMH ATWATER, and we are going to talk about the new kids and her book, Children of the Fifth World. PMH, how are you this evening?
Well, by golly, I'm doing good. How about you?
Well, the sun's not shining up here in Michigan.
Oh, that's good.
Cold and raining today. But they're saying we're supposed to be getting some snow coming this way.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, well, they can keep it over there in Colorado.
Well,
I've been enjoying the unseasonably warm weather and loving it.
Well, so have we, and we've been told that it's going to get really cold, and in southwestern Virginia, we're supposed to get snow tonight.
Oh, boo, boo.
Yes. So I went out and wrapped some plants out in front. Hope they make it through.
No more hanging the laundry on the line, I guess.
Nope, none of that.
So tonight we are going to talk about the new kids.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the new kids.
These are the young people that have entered our planet from about 1982 on. Some came in a little bit earlier than that, but I really peg it as the year 1982 because that's the year that personal computers finally were on the market, finally in everybody's hands, and that really is the moniker, that really is the marker for the new kids. The digital world, they understand nanoseconds better than they understand minutes. So these are people who live in a very different world, very different way of looking at the world. So we're talking then about people from about the age of 30 on, maybe, and some of them are parents now. So, but they're still a very different group of folk. If you really take a look at what's happening evolution-wise, you begin to realize that the human race really is taking a jump in their evolutionary history. We're now moving up, whether we like it or not, and this new pattern that's coming in that these new kids have, it's like a core DNA patterning. And this pattern now is on every continent. It's in every culture. The pattern is just, it's evolution in our times, folks. The human race is changing.
Indeed it is. Some of it's just way out of hand. Some of these changing people are like relentless with war and sabotage.
Well, they look at things very differently. Now, bear in mind we've gone through this before in different ages, different people, different cycles, but now we have something we never had before. It's called the Internet. It's called Facebook. It's called social media. So all of a sudden we can communicate differently than we ever had before, and everything is 24/7, so there's no turning it off. So we now feel that it's worse than it's ever been before. In some ways it is. In other ways it's not. But this is the venue of our new people. This is where we're headed as the human race. That is to say, the world now is more intense, and it's going to get more so. Nothing is hidden. There's no privacy anymore. So, we're adapting and we're changing.
Well, that's for sure we don't have any privacy, and they're going to keep taking more and more of that away, too.
Yeah. Yeah, when you look at some of the ways that you even buy things online, oh, my goodness, you wind up on so many people's lists, and then they start tracking you to find out what your moods are, what your likes and dislikes are, and the next thing you know, they have a whole bunch of statistics on you that they know more about you than you could ever dream they would. And, you know, these are marketers on the Internet. It's like all of a sudden it's like, whoo, Big Brother in your backyard.
Yeah, I think they actually sell when you look at something, you know, because I was looking at something on HSN, and it was like a kitchen roll-around thing, and then all of a sudden I was getting all these emails from everywhere for something like that.
Yeah, they track it. They have these little robots, I forget what they're called, little bots that go around, and they pick up keywords, and then they bunch them together, and then they put them under labels, and they could put them under people's names and so forth and so on. So any time you're on the Internet at all, anybody, and you show an interest in a product or a person or an organization, then that interest you have is now on your bot list.
Well, I think it's an invasion of privacy, if you ask me.
Well, it is.
So,
it is. That's
but,
why
you know, what are you going to do? You have no control over it. They barge into your life.
Well, I don't shop online, so they don't barge into mine.
I don't shop online either. I just wanted to look and see if they had anything in the cabinet section.
Well, you all of a sudden got on a list, didn't you?
Well, I did. I got on that list. Well, I'm on enough lists anyways, you know. I may as well make the grade with all of them.
Well, I'll tell you, our new kids, on the plus side, they're very, very intelligent. You know, they're more intelligent than any other generation we've ever had. Even if they're flunking in school and can't spell, they're still more intelligent across the wires here than what we've had before. About 1/3 are geniuses, even if learning disabled. And I'd like to talk about that for just a little minute here because I think that's so important. What we're getting is about 1/3 of these new kids. Now, I'm speaking internationally here. I'm not just speaking about the United States. About 1/3 of these new kids, when they're taking that standard IQ test, are scoring between 150 and 160. Now, most of your school teachers will say, well, genius is about maybe 132, 136. Other people will say maybe 140. This is 1/3 of today's children are scoring between 150 to 160. And most of them, the vast majority, have no genetic markers to account for it. So we've got this great big jump. It's confusing all of our educators and our psychologists. They're coming up with, you know, what they think might explain it, but none of their explanations work. So we've got this bump in human intelligence with nothing to account for it. And if you really look at this stuff about, well, learning disabled, if the autistic kids or the so-called learning disabled kids, if they take the Ravens test instead of the Wechsler test. The Wechsler test is your standard IQ test, and that checks crystallized intelligence, what you have learned. The Ravens test tests it tests what you can learn. It's fluid, so it's looking at fluid intelligence and what you're capable of learning. And if you have the kids take the Ravens test instead, what we're finding with these autistic kids especially, and the so-called learning disabled, 1/3 of those are scoring 150 to 160 also.
Can you find that test online, PMH?
I don't know because I'm not an online searcher.
I'm
sit down with
curious.
teachers.
I would like to take it just to see, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that if you Google it enough, you're going to be able to get into that Ravens test. But, try it, look it up, see if you can.
I took the other one when I was working at Lionel, and I scored a 142.
All right, you're a genius.
Huh?
You're a genius. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, no, really. I have a daughter, my oldest daughter took that test also.
Well, I did teach myself how to set dies. I was the only die setter there, and none of the men wanted me in, so they wouldn't show me. They would train you on site. So they just threw the tools at me and laughed at me and said, "You'll never make it." And it made me so mad that I taught myself. I read the blueprints and figured the mics out, and I taught myself, and I got the job.
Yeah, well, like I said, you're a genius, because most of standard recognition now for genius is 132 and above. So you're in the 140.
What I did was to tear a machine down, it would take an hour and a half, and I worked there for 10 years, and by the time I left, I figured out how to take a die out and put it back in 12 minutes without tearing the machine down, and I wouldn't tell any of the other die setters.
Okay, I rest my case. These kids are unusually rhythmic and music-oriented. Now, all kids are music-oriented, but these seem to be even more so. They're unusually creative. They're spiritually minded. They're very intuitive, psychic. Many can remember past lives.
Are you sure they didn't come in an earlier time? Because you're describing me to a T.
Well, hold on. Let me finish here, and then we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. They're excellent with math. Don't let them fool you about this, because they're really good at it. They're natural-born healers. They're ready-to-go entrepreneurs. They're irreverent. They're quirky. They have unique beliefs. They're visionary problem solvers. They're very knowing. They're volunteer-minded. They're humanitarians. They're groupies who move as if part of a collective. It's almost like they have a hive mind. They're really a groupie. They want to move as a group. And many of them attend night school in addition to dreaming. And I used to think that this was a bunch of poppycock. And I was in a large shopping mall one time, and there was a woman next to me with a son. He was, I'm going to say maybe 7. And down the other end of the hall, you could just barely see them, was mom and dad and their boy, probably about the same age as the boy next to me. And the two boys saw each other and screamed at each other, screamed their names, went running to each other and hugging like long-lost friends, and talking about the assignment that they were given last night in night school. And, I took this all in and then talked with a woman right next to me, and she was local. The other couple were tourists. They'd never been in the town before. So these boys could never, ever have seen each other before, let alone know each other. Yet, they did know each other. They did go to the same school. They went at night, and they did get the same class assignment. So that made me just stop for a minute here and say, wait a minute, something else is happening here in consciousness. And we can talk about the imaginal realms a little bit later on if you want. But there is a valid thing going on here. And it's not just being psychic, it's not just dreaming. But there are dimensions, there are matrices that these kids visit that are very real. These kids abstract at young ages, very young ages. They're spatial learners. When I talk about abstracting, most people kind of go blank, like, what's an abstracting? What's abstracting? Well, in our normal learning curve, we learn things step by step, brick by brick, we go up the ladder in our learning. But abstractors are people who suddenly got it. And it's like information comes from all the way around 360 degrees and just pops in their brain, and up pops insight and wisdom, and they've got it. And for the life of them, they can't tell you where that insight came from. And this is the way most geniuses think. They're abstract thinkers, and they information comes from all over. They just sort of let it all drop in the same pot, and then up pops the insight or the information that they needed. These are kids they're born that way. And I'd like to give some examples here, because most people say, again, abstract learners, what's that? Here's a little girl. Her name's Michaela, and she's 2.5. And she and her mom are having this discussion. And she walks up to her mom, puts her hands on her hips, and just sort of stamps on the floor and looks her mom in the eye and says, "Well, I just don't know the word for that yet." Well, how is a 2.5-year-old knowing that they don't know the word for something? How can they make that kind of comment? That's abstracting. Let me give you another example. Now, this is from my near-death research, because abstraction is also very common with child experiencers of near-death states after they come back. And this was a little boy. He's 6 years old, north of Georgia. I can't remember exactly what the name of the town, but it was just north of Atlanta, Georgia. And halfway through the school year, he drowned. And they were able to bring him back, and it was a while before he could come back to school. So he finally got back to school. Now, bear in mind, in the first grade, most of the kids, virtually all of the kids, are reading See, Spot, Run, Dick, and Jane, right? So here's this little kid, and he's back in school now, and he's reading Greek mythology and understands it. And he goes up to his teacher and he says to her, "Why was the book Robinson Crusoe ever written?" That's this is a kid who's abstracting.
Wow.
We talk about thinking outside the box. These are kids that have no idea a box was ever there. I had this one little boy, and I didn't run across too many of these, but I did run across one of them who was about first grade level maybe. And he was sitting it was in the morning, he was sitting at the breakfast table, he's having breakfast, and the box of the cereals is in the middle of the table. And people are gathered around the table. And so he's reading all that's on the front of the box that he can see. Then he reads all that's on the top of the box, the two sides of the box, the bottom of the box, and the other half of the box, and he never moved the box. He never touched the box, and he was correct.
Wow.
So these are the kind of minds that some of these kids are coming back with. Very, very different. They also believe in the fusion of sexes and gender mixing. They're very multi-sensory. They're multi-channelers who live in the multiverse. Bad Baby, this is the first generation of children ever in human history that their first view of the world is through a screen.
I'm just curious if the school system is trying to single these children out and find them through testing.
Well, a lot of the parents now who have these unusually gifted children, if they're scoring like 180 and above in the 200s, are keeping them out of school. They're either homeschooling them or they're schooling them off the internet, but they're not allowing them to go to a regular school at all because they're.
I imagine the other children kind of treat them like a freak, I would guess. You know,
well,
children.
I don't know because there's so many of the other kids that are like them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that little kid in the shopping mall. You know, there's so many others like them. But you know, it's a whole new class of people. But again, you know, this important thing that their first view of the world is through a screen. I mean, my first view of the world was outdoors. I mean, you see through the window, and maybe your parents put you on the lawn. You know, it's green grass, it's puppy dogs, it's flowers, it's bark, you know, from a tree or you know, dirt, but not them. Most of our new kids today, their first view of the world is through a screen. So that changes the brain entirely. On the minus side, our new kids are impulsive, they're impatient, they're like the quick-click kids. They feel entitled, many of them are overconfident, they're the ultimate consumers. And one of the things you notice with these kids, they have an underlying anger, very little tolerance for lies and manipulation. You know, you've heard of the Rugrat kids. Well, this is them. They prefer the astral and synthetic worlds to the real world. They're highly sensitive to drugs and snack foods. They're highly sensitive to toxic, incoherent electronic energy, which is Wi-Fi, which are your routers. Yeah.
You know what? When I go to turn my router off, I have electricity run up my legs. I don't like going over by it.
Oh yeah, I can't stand mine. My husband, or I can't stand my husband's. He has to put it on and off. With mine, I have mine sitting on a cork mat, and I don't. With my router for my computer, I don't turn it on or off. I just leave it on. And then when it's time to turn the computer off, I just turn off, the big tower. I don't touch the router. But
they say you should turn it off.
Yeah,
because it's Wi-Fi through your body all the time, and if you're not on your computer, you don't need it to be Wi-Fi in you.
It's not, because I've got mine all fixed. And one of the ways that I've learned to fix, and maybe this will be helpful to you and everybody else, is put amber all the way around your screen and your keyboard. Now, I'm not talking about gemstone or gem quality amber. I'm talking about you can get chunks of it, unpolished amber. You can get old necklaces. I mean, it doesn't have to be fancy stuff.
Uh-huh.
But amber will transmute that radiation. So that you
I need amber bad then, because they put a smart meter on my home, and I get radiated.
Get it off.
They won't take it off, PMH.
There's no way they can force you to do that legally.
Well, the thing is, when you're a target and I'm a target, the purpose of it is to radiate me.
Huh.
Over
here, I live in Virginia, we can object and we can have it taken off.
Yeah, they don't do that in Michigan.
Huh. Well,
They do it in California. If you pay, I think they got to pay $5 or $10 a month to have it off their house. It's like extortion, if you ask me. But no, they won't do that in Michigan. And the thing is, when you're targeted and you try to cause a stink, they try to make it out that you're. I complained about it. They try to make you out as you're mentally ill.
Huh. I can't speak to that, what's going on in Michigan. I just know that here in Virginia, we have been guaranteed that if we don't want it on, we don't have to have it on, and we will not be charged. So,
I heard that they're really forcing them on people in Canada, too.
Well, they're trying to everywhere.
In Canada, they're coming and putting them on their houses when they're not at home, and then they're sending them a bill for $300 for the change in equipment.
Well, legally, they can't do that. So there must be some way to fight it. We've been fighting it here in Virginia, and so far so good. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
But I know legally, I know why they're doing it, because it's cheaper, it's easier, but and they won't recognize the science that says that this is harmful. This is harmful to human beings. This is a health hazard. They won't recognize that at all.
No, they don't care. It is harmful.
Yes, it is. So do everything you can then with cork, with amber. Another thing that helps a lot is spider plants. A lot of your plants will help absorb this radiation as well. So have those around also. Have fresh air if you possibly can, or at least a lot of light. All of this makes a difference, but I'll tell you, amber is what made the biggest difference for me. Mm-hmm. Marvelous what it does. And so does carnelian, and so does lepidolite, or lepidolite. Depends on how you want to pronounce it. But that also is very healing and very helpful to the human being. But what really works with the energy itself is amber. I never wear amber. I use amber. Amber is a tool, and I use it. But these kids are highly sensitive to all this kind of stuff. They do not assimilate nutrition well. I don't care if it's organic. I don't care what it is. They don't assimilate it well. They have no concept of authority. They need mentors, not bosses. They appear wiser than they are. Self-deception is a big issue. They're sensitive to trickster energy, which is your possessors, your attachments, these kinds of low-energy beings. They do not understand effort, the effort needed to process or refine. In other words, the fact that you would have to go to college and get a degree, they don't understand that. They don't understand why they just can't go out the door and know it all and get the job. They just don't have that concept of having to earn it or refine it. And that's why so much of the material that's out there, they want it all free. They don't have any concept of that the individual had to work really hard, had to do a lot of practice to do the music. They want all the music to be free. Again, it's hard for them to understand that that you had to go through a lot to put that music out there. They expect things to come to them. They do not recognize boundaries, even that of skin. And their greatest fear, hold on to this, their greatest fear is silence. They don't know how to handle it.
Yes, a lot of them are in college because all them college kids just had that big march where they want their college debt erased and they want their college for free.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're very much on the democracy movement. They want to be heard, and they want to change the way we do everything. Well, in many ways that's good, but in other ways it's not so good. But we're talking about the new kids, this new pattern. In the book, I call it root races, ROOT, root, the idea of core, or what's at the root of things. There's a whole tradition of using that phrase and talking about the different evolutions of the human being on the Earth planet, the various root races. We're now up to 5. I think we've been at the 5th root race for a while, but we're now moving into ascension, or the idea that the root race is coming into completion. So therefore, the qualities of that kind of individual are now peaking, and this is what we're seeing all over everywhere. But when you were saying that sounded like you, well, it probably is. You're probably a 5th root racer. I know I am, and I'm pushing 80, so I know I am too. And if you go back in history, you can see patterns of the 5th root race even back to the time of Jesus. There weren't very many people, but there were some. If you also go back in history and look at the Renaissance, the different Renaissances that the world has known, every one of them were started by or filled with this pattern of individual. It's like, who do you think started the Renaissance to begin with? It was that type of 5th root race characteristics. They started coming in really lots of them, big waves of them in the 1800s, and especially from 1840 on. This is the time of the Civil War, and this is the breaking changes in our homes, our families, our governments, our buildings, our banking system, investment system, so forth and so on. But especially the New Thought movement. The New Thought movement really started going big time from about the 1840s up to the 1860s. You got Phineas Quimby, then followed by Emerson and Thoreau and all the great thinkers of our time, especially in the United States and Canada, but also in Europe. Just really great thinkers that were coming forward. This is the New Thought, and people are saying, well, okay, what do you mean by the New Thought, people? And this is strictly 5th root race. These are the people that absolutely demand that they can heal themselves, that they don't have to go to a doctor. By golly, they're going to figure it out for themselves. They understand consciousness. They understand spiritual healing and different ways of healing, and they know that they don't necessarily have to go to a doctor. They should be able to do it themselves. And the same way with talking to God. I shouldn't have to go to a church and talk to a minister. My goodness, I should be able to do that myself directly. And
have you been following me around?
Well, this is a new thought. This is a new thought, people, so you're just one of us. But
I teach holistic healing on Wednesday night, and I don't believe in going to the doctor. I can heal myself.
Well, my dear, you're a New Thought person. You're a fifth root race person. You just fit it absolutely perfectly. But do you know?
And I don't go to church because I don't think I have to go to somewhere to talk to the Lord. I do it right here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, New Thought person that you are. But the person who originated the New Thought movement, believe it or not, was Plato.
Really?
He's the one who started it, Plato. Yes. You can go back. And
I always just thought it was a headstrong person.
This idea about oneness and all this that all comes from Plato. Yeah, it goes that far back. So at various times in our history, we've really, were able to hit the jackpot, but then we'd forget it or go on to something else, or some foolish movement would come along and we'd blow it. So we're getting a chance to do it again now, while another foolish movement is coming to the fore. That is to say, ISIS and Al-Qaeda and all these other terrorist groups. If we look at that, it's like if something gets bad enough and horrible enough, maybe we're finally going to wake up and realize we don't have to put up with this, and we can make some incredible changes. It's like in the past we've had moments like this. Certainly, we've had World War II, we've had World War I, we've had times in our history that were very fearsome and very terrible. But again, we haven't had a time in our history that we know of where we had an internet. We had, we had news that's visual, that's imagery in our homes 24/7. So now all of a sudden we're being hit with horror and terror like we've never been hit before. Never in our whole history. My hope is that we'll really be able to see this for what it is, realize, no, this is not the way we want to live, and do something about it.
Absolutely. It really is, the evil is just getting out of hand.
Oh, it's completely out of hand. But if you take a real look at it, I can't remember if I said this on your show before or not. You want to get on my website, www.pmhatwater.com, pmhatwater.com, and sign up for my free monthly newsletter. There's an archive there, and you wanna look up. I believe it's the August issue, where I really just reveal who and what ISIS is. It's a death cult, and they pattern everything they do after jinn. D-J-I-N-N, jinn. Jinn is the Middle Eastern view or storytelling or understanding of Satan. The Christian version is one thing, and jinn is the other one. So
I know what jinn is, and have you ever seen a picture of it?
Well, I certainly know their playbook and their what makes up jinn, and that is exactly ISIS all the way.
Mm-hmm. Pure evil.
Yeah. If you look at what is jinn, it's exactly the same as what is ISIS. ISIS doesn't have anything to do with Islam. They don't practice Islam at all. They're not Muslims. They're jinn. It's nothing more than a death cult. And if we would just wake up to that. And one of the things, I'm thinking in my mind, wouldn't it be wonderful if the Muslim community would wake up? Because there's so many different kinds of Muslims and ways of looking at the Quran and different types of Islam. There's no central head. So there's all these different interpretations and ways of looking at Islam. If the Muslims themselves would wake up and start their campaign, and I guess some of them are, but we need to have more and more and more. I was watching a wonderful imam on television, just a couple of days ago. He was, I believe, in the state of Oregon, had a mosque there, and he was saying how willing everybody is to talk with anybody who wants to question them or talk to them. They'll straighten them out and tell them what the real truth is about ISIS. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not going to do it. That's nice, but that's not going to do it. You're going to need to have something like a 1 million Muslim march on Washington, D.C., and where they really come out in great numbers objecting to ISIS and what they're doing to destroy Islam.
Well, that takes effort, and a lot of people nowadays don't want to put effort in.
Well, if they don't do something like that, everybody will always say, what's the matter with the Muslims? Why aren't they speaking up? We've got the other people speak up. They come out. But, the Muslims aren't. They're just saying, well, no, that's not us. Okay. Well, show us that. Don't just tell us, show us. Well, when we're talking about these new kids, I really, really, really want to recommend people read Children of the Fifth World, because our world has changed, our kids have changed. One of the goals of these new kids is the idea of gender mixing, this idea of, what's male, what's female, let's just mix it up, and that's exactly what's happening. The first country to come out with 3 sexes, not 2, 3, was Germany. And that was in 2013. And this is all legal: passports, marriage licenses, birth certificates, everything. You have a choice: F for female, M for male, X for indeterminate. And that was followed the following year by India. Now there are 12 nations that are doing that. Not here in the United States yet, but there are 12 nations that are now putting a slot for, your choice. You can be neutral. You can be indeterminate. And I find it interesting that while this is going on, there's a much greater birth now of hermaphrodites, people born with both sexes. And that is occurring more and more and more. So it's like the world is supporting this, the people are supporting this. It's like, whoa. It's no longer just male and female. All of a sudden we have transgender, and we have, all kinds of different ways of looking at sex.
Yeah, well, I have heard about hermaphrodites. I didn't know that there were more of them, that more and more of them are coming out, but...
Yeah. The birth rate is spiking. In the United States, we still have, our ratios are still kind of down. I think it's 1 in every 1,000 births. Of course, that's still fairly high. But in Europe, especially Germany, it's like 1 out of every 100. So there's lots.
I guess chat room that says that's the elite way to bring down the population.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. But certainly with the refugees moving in with their high birth rate, that's going to turn everything around again.
Yeah. And there, from what I just saw a report yesterday where someone was at the dentist office and they looked over at the airport and they saw the UPS plane loading 30 buses of people in dark window buses with FBI escorts. And he filmed it and followed them. They're sneaking people in on package planes.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that. That's new.
Yep. Yeah, well, they're getting, people are paying attention to what's going on.
Oh, good. This is what we want. Well, remember, we're in the information age now. So people are waking up. This is good.
Yeah.
This is what we want. Absolutely. Well, I want to see more and more of this. And people speaking up.
Oh, I do. I see it. With my research, I see it going on. I see a big change in people. They aren't taking it anymore. They're standing up and speaking out, and this is what we need.
Oh, we need it all over the world, not just in the United States.
Oh, absolutely, we do. We need it all over the world.
Yeah.
We need to quit fighting and love one another.
Yeah, or at least support one another and give everyone an equal chance, a try. Then it's up to them. Do you realize that there's many countries in this world, China is one of them, but there's many countries in this world that have no tradition for debate. So you've got children growing up that are being taught it's either right or it's wrong. There's no gray in life. There's no debate. There's no consideration. There's no discussion. And that's one of the big ones that I think we're facing with these new children and the new children themselves, because they want to talk about it. They want to investigate. They want a democracy. Yet there's so many countries where debates are not allowed at all.
Yep. China is a cruel country to live in.
Well,
I mean, they
kind of yes and
I
kind of no.
understand they want to keep their birth rate down, but have you ever heard of Jim Garrow before?
Jim who?
Garrow, Dr. Jim Garrow.
No.
I had him on. He ran against Obama for the Nobel Peace Prize. He saved like 70,000 babies
Oh,
in China.
him, yes.
Yeah. I've had him on the show before.
Oh, I bet.
Yep.
I bet he was interesting.
Yes, he was very interesting, and he kind of just stumbled into that. He was lecturing in China, and someone had approached him, a friend of his in China, and said that they had a friend that just had a baby girl, and the father wanted a boy, so they were going to kill this child. And he said, please don't do that. Bring her to me. And he smuggled her out of the country. And he said one led to another, to another, and to another, and then he just kind of got in the business of saving all these babies.
Well, they're paying for it now. You know, you've read all the headlines. What is it, like 30 million men in China today?
Yeah, and there's no women.
Yeah, there's no women for them at all because they did this. So they're facing a real crisis Nobody knows where that's going to go for sure, but it is a real crisis in the way they handle health care and the way they handle the elders and pension and retirements. It's changing everything right now because there's no way that can be passed on from family to family like it used to be. Instead, China itself is going to have to make arrangements for this kind of care. And they've never had to before. It's always been taken care of by the family. So they're not going to be able to do that anymore. I have a very good, close friend of mine who just returned a few months ago from living in China and teaching there. She went there to teach the Chinese English and grade level. Oh gee, I think it was like 18-year-olds, 18 up to about 20. Well, it might have been a little bit younger than that. And she was amazed at how open the people are themselves to learning and exploring. They have ways of getting around the censors, a lot of them. And one of the things she said to me that I just could not hardly believe, one of the books that is selling so well in China is A Course in Miracles. Can you believe that? A Course in Miracles. And a lot of your metaphysical books, mystical books, they've got whole groups that are studying this kind of information over there. And I said, I thought this was, anything to do with reincarnation or this kind of thing, I thought that was banned. She said, well, the little bookstore around the corner sells them. And the kids flock over there, and they're buying those books, and they're reading them. And they get together in their little groups, and they talk about them. So apparently the Chinese aren't coming down as hard as they used to. But I just couldn't hardly believe that literally a bestseller is A Course in Miracles.
So are there a lot of these new children in China?
Yeah. But, they're everywhere. They're in every racial group. They're on every continent. They're everywhere. However, some of them are going the other way. One of the things I noticed with these new kids is a lot of it is coming in thirds. About a third have that gene mutation. It's a double gene mutation that builds a better brain. So they're coming in really, really smart. About a third in their standard IQ test scored genius. We know that now that a third of even autistic kids, if they take the Ravens test, also score genius. About not quite 2/3 of all the kids with autism are male, about a third are female. It reverses with dyslexia. About 2/3 are female, about a third are male. About a third of these new kids coming in have no sense of living a full life, and they have no problem with that. 2/3 have no intention of ever marrying or going to college, or even having children. So we've got downturns and upturns seem to be happening in thirds. So we've got 1/3 that are profoundly gifted. We've got 1/3 who are quite intelligent, creative, intuitive. But we've got 1/3, another third, that are either amoral, psychopaths, or violent. And it's all running in thirds. And the numbers have been running this way for over a decade. And that, to me, as a researcher, that's not possible. It's like somebody's phoning up the numbers, but yet it's still working out that way. And one of the things I notice when I'm looking at this, that it's moving in thirds. Thirds is the baseline of universal order. If you get into esoteric thought, if you get into mysticism, if you get into spiritual thought, thirds are the baseline of universal order. Your triangles are the strongest of all the forms. But if you just stick with the thirds, the Holy Trinity, the third spiritual law is karma, the third spiritual tradition is the golden rule, thirds are the rhythmic proportions to the golden mean, nature's preference for harmony, balance, and beauty. So if this stuff is happening in thirds and seems to stay pretty much that way, might deviate a little bit, but doesn't deviate that much. This tells me that something else is going on here. That it's not just we the people and history as we think history comes and goes, but it tells me there's another hand involved. And maybe you could say that's God. Maybe you could say it's God's plan. Maybe you could say, well, there's some kind of plan. But we seem to have something going on here that's very rhythmic. And it can't be that way without consciousness directing it. So whose consciousness? Everybody's? Ours as a group? Or something else?
I don't know. Whose consciousness do you think it is?
Well, if you're thinking in terms of a higher order and a greater intelligence, if you want to put the term God on that, then I would vote for that. I would also vote for the idea of intelligence, that there is a rhythmic intelligence. We can trace that through all evolution on this earth. It's still happening. And as far as I'm concerned, it seems to be part of that. That the human race is evolving with a rhythm. There's a rhythm to it. And that tells me there's an intelligence behind it. And as a near-death experiencer, I would say that intelligence is that greater intelligence that is in back of creation itself.
Now, people that have had near-death experiences, I've looked at quite a few tapes of that, and they don't want to come back, do they?
Most of them don't, no. I mean, yes, you're correct. No, they don't want to come back. I wanted to be clear there.
What's going on our planet? I wouldn't want to come back either.
Well, a lot of them, though, they don't want to come back, but they're coming back to make a difference. Those that do choose to come back. But, whether you choose to come back or not, you're going to come back. And this is what we're seeing again and again. I think I told you the story, didn't I, last time of Tom Sawyer? And yes, that's really his name. He was a bicyclist. I think he was trying out for the Olympics. So he was very, very much a sportsman. And kind of a hard ass, if you'll pardon the phrase. Just not necessarily a pleasant person to be around, and he was always in a fight, and, one of these guys' guy, a man's man. And he was repairing his truck in the garage, and the engine, and he had it up on ropes and this kind of thing. He's underneath, and he's doing the repairs, and the ropes broke. So it fell on him and crushed his chest, and he died. When help could finally come and get the medics and get him to a hospital, they were finally able to revive him. and he had a very long and lengthy near-death experience. And it's just, and one of the things he said about his experience, he said, like many of them, that the other side was such an incredible place. And he was told by the beings over there, do you want to stay or do you want to go on? And do you want to go back? And he says, oh, I want to stay. I want to stay. There's no way I want to go back. I want to stay. And by golly, he popped right back into his body, and he's back. And he was so mad. Well, this is one of the things, really, that you find with near-death experiencers. The number one emotion that most of them have when they revive is anger. They didn't want to come back. So he was angry, like most of them are, and he felt like he was kicked out of heaven. He says, I chose to stay. It didn't make any difference. I got sent back anyway. So he was really unhappy about that.
Was the guy you talked about last time that was in the mafia, was he mad that he had to come back?
I didn't ask him, so I can't answer that for you.
Oh, okay. I was just curious because you had told us that his life changed dramatically.
I would rather imagine that he wanted to come back, that is to say, to somehow make a difference, because he came to realize how wrong he was. And the life that he had lived was just, not a good life. He just made so many mistakes and hurt so many people. And it just really got to him. So his desire to come back was to somehow make a difference. So
that's why he came back.
Well,
because he had a purpose.
I can't say for sure that that's why, because he didn't say, but that's my assumption by the way he acted. But this is why I ever started researching the new kids to begin with. It's because of the near-death kids. Because I was doing my research with adults and then with children, and I kept noticing that everyday kids, normal kids born to just anybody and everybody and anywhere, were starting to manifest the same or similar characteristics to children who'd had a near-death experience. And again, this is one of the things with me as a researcher. I'm taking a look at that and I'm saying, wait a minute here, that is not possible. There's something going on here, and I want to find out what it is. So that's when I started doing a separate research project just on, ordinary kids, everyday kids. Why are they so similar to children who'd had a near-death experience and come back? And that's when I discovered this bit about the evolution of the human race, the fifth root races. Or I knew about root races, but I just didn't quite put it all together until I started asking a lot of questions and did a lot of had a lot of sessions with people and did a lot of studying and sat down with a number of experts with genius and experts with education and on and on and on. I'm a field worker. So I'm out there in the field, I'm talking to people. And that's when I began to put two and two together and get four. It's like, wait a minute here, we've got something big going on here that's massive. This is why I wish everybody would read that book, Children of the Fifth World. I think you're going to be absolutely amazed at what's going on with the human race. Yeah, some of it's scary, but some of it is really great. We are really moving up the scale and becoming much more intelligent. much more resourceful, creative, intuitive, knowing, psychic than we've ever been in history. We're more of a healer than we've ever been in history. We're a lot smarter than we've ever been before. What is going to be our downfall, I think, is this idea of mentors. The new kids need mentors, and they need them very, very badly. It's harder now for children to grow up than it ever was before. You'd think it was the other way around, but nope, it's not. It's much more difficult for the new kids now to grow up than any other generation in history. They're being divided more. They're being threatened more. They're being mixed up more than ever before. So they really, really need mentors, especially our guys, especially the boys. We've got these new kids, and the figures are based come from 2013, so that's a couple of years ago. But 81%. I mean, just get this, bad baby. 81% of our boys, or 81% of our young people, of our young people who are committing suicide, 81% are boys.
Why?
It's just the hookup culture has got them all confused. They don't know how to handle what's being expected of them as boys with sex. They don't know how to handle the girls. They don't know how to handle school. They don't have a good, strong male role model, and they're collapsing. These are boys from ages 10 to the age of 24. 81% of suicides between 10 and the age of 24 are boys.
I think part of that might have to do with a lot of the children are being forced medicated psych drugs too.
That and the fact that there's no strong male role model in the home, and it all adds up.
Yeah. Well, when there's problems at home, and I'm telling you, I see commercials all the time, even here in Michigan. Do you think your child's depressed? They could qualify for a free study and get free medicine.
It's like they're talking them into it.
Yes.
They're creating it.
Absolutely. And, then when they get on these psych drugs, they alter your brain, and they cause the depression.
Yes, that's very, very true. And that's one of the things I've noted with these new kids. They seem to love drugs, can't get enough of them, and yet the drugs are really hurting them. One of the things that we're seeing now, over the years, with these kids who are supposedly ADHD or something like that, that's taking Ritalin or all these different drugs, once they're of age, that is to say in their 20s, we're finding that they don't know what love is. They don't know what love is.
Well, I can believe that. Because no one teaches anyone what love is.
Well, they don't feel it. They don't know what it is. I would advise anyone in your audience that's listening to get the book Dosed, The Medication Generation Grows Up. It's by Caitlin Bell Barnett. Dosed, The Medication Generation Grows Up. It's because of these drugs that take away the ability to feel love, to be able to know what love is. And it's making a huge difference now.
Do you know that 2/3 of all the psych drugs that are on the market, 2/3 of the psych drug is fluoride, and fluoride dumbs down your brain. So that's why they have no feeling.
Yeah, that's rat poison.
Yeah.
That's what they use
Yep.
for rat poison.
Well, and we're getting it in our toothpaste, we're getting it in our water, and then we're also getting it in medication. So when you start bombarding these children with all of this, and you know what really irks me about the fluoride in the toothpaste is they make toothpaste that tastes like bubble gum and tell you, oh, you get your kids to brush more if it's bubble gum flavored, but if you ever look at your toothpaste package, it says do not swallow. If you do, call poison control because it's poison.
I use only organic stuff, so I don't have that kind of toothpaste. America,
but,
wake up.
They tell you you're only supposed to use a pea size of toothpaste, and then if you swallow it, look at the package. If you ever go in the store, pick one up and look at it. I tell people this all the time, and they're like, oh, they could sell it to you if it's poison. But, yes, it does say on the package, if you swallow your toothpaste, call poison control.
I'm going to have to look at a box.
They are poison. You're right. It's rat poison. That's the main ingredient in rat poison.
Yeah, it's rat poison. Yeah, it is.
And, I think it's by design to alter the brain. They want people, they don't want intelligent people. They don't want people to think for themselves.
Well, that might be part of it, but I think another part of it is money. They want to do things the way that the company will make the most profit, and they don't care or notice or bother to realize what else is happening when they do that. They don't see the other half of the story, and it's because they don't want to see the other half of the story. They don't bother to see the other half of the story. And then when they finally when they're finally exposed to that, they're saying, "Oh, I just had no idea. I didn't realize this was going to happen. We had studies done. They didn't show this." And it's like, wake up, world here. We've got to be responsible and at least look and make changes, make choices based on what we're able to ascertain and learn, so we do our best there.
Well, it's just unfortunate that we get poisoned from every angle and people are, like you said, they're unaware because they just figure, they can't.
Let me recommend another book for parents. If you do have a child that has ADHD or autism, brain damage, Asperger's syndrome, undiagnosed developmental delays, any of these kinds of things, you want the book Kids Beyond Limits. That's the name of it. The secondary name is really long, so I'm not even going to bother to give you that one. Just Kids Beyond Limits is the name of the book. It's by Annette Banel, and I'm not sure that I'm pronouncing her name right, but it's spelled A-N-A-T, and the last name B as in boy, A-N-I-E-L. It's a Peregrine book. Came out in 2012, but it's still 100% valid. If you have a child that is kind of different or is having learning problems of various kinds, you want to get this book, because what Annette has done, she has, using natural methods, she has found ways not only of waking these kids up or helping the parents out, but she's found ways of turning these around to where, I forget what her rate is. It's something like 80% cure rate. It and just using natural methods. I compare her. I don't know if you remember or not, but I certainly do. The polio epidemic, way back when it hit the United States, we had people dropping like flies even on city sidewalks, and I was one of those kids. I was about 4.5 when I came down with it. I got the mild kind, fortunately, but the people coming down with polio was just huge. It was a massive epidemic, and there was one woman in Australia. Her name was Sister Kenny, or at least that's what we called her, Sister Kenny. And she took natural methods, and she used those on people supposedly crippled for the rest of their life, or in a lung chamber. And she used these natural methods on these people, and she also had, a cure rate of like 80% or more. Fantastic what she was able to do. And the American Medical Association would not and never recognized her or her methods. They wouldn't even give her the time of day. And this is a woman that was absolutely causing miracles, one right after another. Tens of thousands of people.
Pharmaceuticals is big business.
A part
they want people on drugs.
I think that's part of it. I don't think that's all of it. I think a lot of it has to do with ego and not wanting to admit that anything natural could be that effective. Well, I call Annette Bonnell today's Sister Kenny. She's doing like Sister Kenny did. That is to say, she's using natural methods, whereby if you use them and use them constantly and repeatedly and in an intelligent way that she teaches you how, you can bring your kids out of these afflictions. And again, her cure rate is just way sky high, just like Sister Kenny's was. And again, I look at Annette Bonnell and I just, wow, here's another Sister Kenny. And her methods are being sort of swept under the rug by the American Medical Association and all the powers that be, just like Sister Kenny. So anybody out there in Radio Land who might be listening, be sure you get the book Kids Beyond Limits by Annette Bonnell.
I'll have to recommend that to my friend. She's got an autistic child.
Yeah.
But we last week on my health program we're delving in more into the essential oils.
Oh,
and frankincense and myrrh are two that you can put on an autistic child's feet to calm them down.
I could see that, especially frankincense. Yes, I could see that. Of course, frankincense is really expensive, but it would do the job.
Yes, because it's a healing. That's the oil that the wise men took to the manger. So it's a gift from God to heal. But yes, I had a guest on a few years ago that she worked with essential oils a lot, and she said she actually brought people out of comas in the hospital with it. So yes, I'm a.
Well, I could believe that. The more that we can bring to the fore these kinds of medications and methods and ideas that worked before, that have worked regularly, the more we can bring that back, the better.
Mm-hmm.
We can't depend on medicine. I got a real shock yesterday. Just yesterday, I I ordered from CVS Pharmacy. I don't know what kind of pharmacy you have, but we have CVS over here. And ordered some Desinide cream. It's a special little cream that you put on rashes. And sometimes I get some rashes that are bothersome, so I got some of this Desinide cream. And I've been using it off and on for decades. I mean, this is not new. It's inexpensive. It's low dose. It's not a heavy kind of cream at all, or special at all. And I've never paid. I can't remember exact price, but I'm going to say somewhere between $12 and maybe the highest I ever paid for it was $18. So my husband went in to get some for me, and it's $300. And with my ARP discount, it brought it down to $124. And I said, "You're kidding. This is like, $12, maybe $18 max. Never paid that much. I won't even pay $20 for it."
Yeah. Well, I can.
So I refused it. I refused it.
Start taking the blackstrap molasses, a tablespoon a day with the baking soda, and your rashes will go away.
Ha! Well, we'll be doing things like that.
Warm up a cup of water and put a tablespoon of the molasses and a teaspoon of baking soda in it, and it will raise your pH. And the molasses, if you look it up, it heals. It's healing for your skin. I used to have really bad psoriasis on my elbows, and after I started doing the molasses in the morning, my skin is completely cleared up.
I'm putting that down on my list right now for groceries.
Just make sure you get the baking soda that is edible, because they've got baking soda. You got to look at the side of the box, or I always get mine at the health food store to make sure that it's aluminum free.
Oh, I see. It has to be aluminum free.
Yeah, you don't want to eat the baking soda that has aluminum in it, because that'll go right to your brain and it's toxic. So I go to the health food store. It's like $3 for a bag of it, and it lasts me a couple months,
Mhm. Okay.
Red Baron.
I've just made myself a note. I hope everybody out in Radio Land has done the same thing.
Yes.
So,
but that molasses and baking soda, and that will, the baking soda will raise your pH in your body, and it will prevent the fungus of cancer from growing.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. And we need to get more of this material and more of this information out, and especially with our new kids, because they need this information.
Yeah.
And, they don't have much money, most of them, so they're going to start listening. They're coming out into the world thinking, everything's rosy, I'm going to get anything I want whenever I want it, and they're finding out that the jobs are scarce, and they're not able to do what they thought they were going to do, or that they were promised they would be able to do. So they're now perking up their little ears and saying, whoa, there's another way, and it doesn't cost as much and it's much more effective. I love what some of these new kids are doing, because they have no fear. They're just getting right out there and getting involved. We've got this this one kid in Brazil, the country of Brazil of all places. He's 19 years old, and he got tired of the government being run the way it is, and all of the graft and corruption in the government. And he's a skinny little 19-year-old college dropout. He comes up with what he calls the Free Brazil movement, and got up on his little soapbox on the street and started talking. And what he has now is a growing force that is focused on getting rid of the country's president, and he's getting more and more people behind him. This little 19-year-old kid, and thousands, tens of thousands of people have now joined the Free Brazil movement. He's amazing what he's doing. Then we've got this girl. She's 19 also. She's in Egypt. She has invented, get this, she's invented a cheaper, virtually fuelless propulsion method to replace the familiar chemical explosion and radioactive technology of rocketry. So she's come up with a cheaper, virtually fuelless propulsion method to be able to handle rockets. And it's a 19-year-old girl, and she's a Muslim, and she's in Egypt. Are these kids all over the world? You bet they're all over the world. And they're doing things that are just unbelievable. What we hear a lot of them doing in our country and in Canada is the humanitarian ideas that these kids have. They're coming out with all kinds of ways of handling those people who are homeless, who don't have enough food to eat. We've got this one boy. He started out in Canada. I think he started out at the age of 4 or 5. And he was so concerned about what he saw on television. People in Africa, they didn't have clean water. Didn't have clean wells at all, or any wells. So he just went up and down his street asking for money, and he was going to send the money to Africa to help the people drill wells.
I think I saw that story.
Yeah. And it took him, what was it, maybe 4 or 5 years or more? He kept doing it and doing it and doing it and sending the money there, getting more and more wells.
Wasn't he collecting aluminum cans also and turning them in for money?
Yes, he did. He collected millions of dollars. Millions.
Yep.
And all kinds of water wells now in Africa from him. We've got a young girl here in Charlottesville, Virginia, who started up a group to feed those people who needed more food. And what she was able to do was, like what this little boy did. And this kind of thing is happening all over. These kids are clever, they're intelligent, they're smart, they're resourceful, they're intuitive. They may be quirky, they may be irreverent. They love drugs, they love sex, they love nudity. These are quirky kids. But they're really inventive, and they're finding new ways of doing things. Yeah, they don't have the money, so they're finding ways of, without the money, to be able to move mountains. I'm saying let's get involved with our kids. Let's mentor them. Let's help them out. Because they're just, wow, they're changing everything. If you get in, you're going to love this. If you get into the mystical studies, the esoteric studies of these root races and the comings and goings of great ages, what you find is that every great age has models, very large, powerful models of great ones that they want to follow. And these models will change with every age. Every age has an Adam of some kind. Every age has a Noah of some kind. And every age has a Messiah of some kind. When I look at our age right now, the present age, when I look at the Adam, the model of the Adam, I really think what we have now is Gandhi. If you look at Gandhi, that's where we get democracy, independence, nonviolence, peaceful protest. I think we've had a Noah. I think our Noah has come, and our Noah was Nelson Mandela, and he gave us forgiveness and reconciliation. I do not think we've had the Messiah yet. I don't think we've had the model for that yet. I know there's Benjamin Creme in England that claims the new Messiah is here. Read his stuff. I'm sorry. Talk to people who know him. No. He has a whole organization built up, lots of money, lots of people, but his stuff doesn't stand up. Just doesn't stand up. So I don't think we've got our Messiah yet, but we've got our Adam and we've got our Noah.
I don't think we have a Messiah yet either.
Mm-mm. No, we haven't had that model yet. Hasn't come yet.
Okay, for some of the people that have come in late, PMH, why don't you tell them how they can go to your website and how they can get a hold of your book?
Okay. Excuse me. My website is just myname.com, and my name is PMH Atwater, just initials. Yes, that's really my name. So my website is www.pmhatwater.com. Just like you're at the water. So it's pmhatwater.com. When you get on the home page, we haven't mentioned this, but when you get on the home page, I mentioned it last time, but I want to mention it again. Right away on the home page, you're going to see the call for volunteers for my newest research project. I'm looking for people who might have had a near-death experience between the ages of womb to the age of 5. So I'm looking at little tiny ones. And please download that. Look it over. That page is self-sufficient. Tells you everything you need to know. I want to know a lot of things about your life. That page is not a quiz. Nothing on it is numbered. It's just designed to help you go back and remember and connect and expand and describe what your life was like. Did you bond with your family? What was your relationship with your siblings? If you had any, what was school like? What was dating like? Friends like? Sex? Growing up? Tell me about you. And so all that info is on that page. Then you also want to do two things. Another thing you want to do, if you are a near-death experiencer or an experiencer of some kind of very intensive transformation of consciousness, no matter how it was caused, you want to scroll over to resources. This is brand new. It's only been on for, I think, maybe a couple of weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks now. You want to scroll over to resources. You want to hit resources. It's a pull down. And you want to go down to NDE After Effects. Now, for the first time, you're not going to find this anywhere else, not in any book, not on anybody's website. I'm starting to give the full profile of the after effects and how to handle them, adults and children. I'm waving a big flag for veterans. So you want to explore that. Then another thing that you can do, you want to scroll over to where it says newsletter and open that up. You can subscribe to my free monthly newsletter. Just put your info in there. It's all private. And, every month you get my newsletter. There is an archive there, and you can hunt up past issues. One of the things you're going to notice if you go back far enough, several years, the newsletter has changed. It's getting bigger and hopefully better. I'd like to think it's getting better. It has more and more news in it. My newsletter is for the curious. Anybody who's curious, I think you're going to enjoy what comes out in my newsletter. It's always different. Every month it's different, and it will continue to be that way because I'm one of these very, very curious and interested people, and I like to know and find out and explore all kinds of things. So you get that on my newsletter. Oh, by the way, the book, Children of the Fifth World, certainly you can get that off Amazon.com. You can get that at any bookstore. I don't care what the bookstore is. If they don't have it on their shelves, they can order it. It was published by Bear and Company, like the Brown Bear, Bear and Company. Bear and Company is a division of Inner Traditions. So you want Children of the Fifth World. It goes very deeply into the pros and cons of our new kids. It goes very deeply into the brain, a very different brain, a different perspective that these children have. It goes into food, health, and the environment. There's a section there on the new business of business and politics for these kids, timelines and variations. I get very much into the actual timelines. Like, for instance, what we've got coming up as a country, United States of America, between 2022, 2024, massive changes with the planet Pluto. If you know anything at all about astrology, we're having our big Pluto return, I believe, in 2022. Pluto returns to the United States birth chart to where it was 248 years ago. And Pluto means death of the old, birth of the new. It means a time of radical change. Not just change for the sake of change, but really radical stuff. So that's coming up. You're going to be learning about a lot of these dates. Some of the larger dates are not in the book. Unfortunately, I forgot them. I forgot them. I forgot to put 2022 in there, in fact, but I described a lot of the years around there. And there's another time that I forgot to put in. That's 2045. And we have some real action there with Uranus opposite Pluto in the United States chart. So whatever isn't changed or turned around in 2022 will be in 2045. Then you've got a lot of people today talking about 2030, and these are also major cycles. And, we're in the time of the great shifting. And, all you have to do is pick up a newspaper and read the headlines. We certainly are, where everything is changing. The way we govern, our politics, our money, the way we bank, the way we invest, the way we work, our jobs, the way we get our jobs, all of it is up for change. All of it. None of it. None of it will remain as it is today. People are sort of crying and saying, when are things going back to the way they were? They're not going back to the way they were. So, wake up, world. We've got, it's our charge to change.
Do you think that the new kids are going to get into our politics and maybe save our country?
They're certainly going to get into our politics, and a lot of them are. Are they going to save our country? That's a big one. It's going to be us. It's going to be we, the people, who save our country. When we began our program, you made note about people are watching now, and they've got their little cell phones out there, and they're taking pictures, and they're writing things down, and they're after people. We're waking up, and we must. We have to. So it's going to be we, the people, that make the changes. But well,
I think the biggest thing that we have to do is not expect the other guy to do it for us.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
We need to all do it together. Otherwise, it's not going to work. If you just think, well, this is too overwhelming for me, and I'll just let someone else take care of it, that's how come we got into the situation we're in now.
Right. And people are fed up. I think that's why we have Trump. That's making these high scores, in popularity everywhere. It's like whether this guy would make a good president or not, we love him because he's just putting it out there as it is, and he's saying enough's enough. We've got to change it, and we've got to do it in a major way. And, I really don't like his plans, but I like his guts. And I like the fact that he's out there yelling.
Well, he says he'll bring jobs back, and that's what we need. It's funny that you said that because, again, someone had I have reviews in my window underneath my chat, and someone had wrote in there that they should make me the new press secretary, but then honesty would have to come back in. And I thought, oh, my God, if they made me the press secretary, they'd be putting a bullet in my head like Kennedy because I wouldn't lie for them.
Well, enough of us are getting fed up, and we're doing it in the tens of thousands, maybe the millions. It's going to make a difference. It's going to depend on people getting out there to their cities. You've got to begin with your cities, and get on the town councils.
There you go.
Yeah. And
do some things for your community.
Yeah. The planning commission and everything else. Get involved.
Help the poor people that are out there starving. I was looking at a few videos today. These guys, they call themselves solo, and they take whatever extra money they have out of their checks, and they go. The one guy, he went into the grocery store, and he spent like $150 on food, and he just went out and started handing out bottles of water, a banana, and a sandwich to the homeless.
Yeah. You see, this is what it's going to take. It's going to take we, the people. We're going to change things, whether our politicians do or not. We are going to change things.
Well, we have to learn to care about one another.
Well, a lot of this is the new kids. We talk about these kids being intelligent idiots. Intelligent because we can't argue with their IQ scores and how much they know and what they're capable of doing because they are the smartest, most intelligent kids we've ever had. But they don't know beans about emotion. They don't know beans about feelings. They don't know beans about these practical little skills that make all the difference in the world. And they don't even know language like we do. They're losing that because of their text messaging all the time. They're losing language. And because of spending so much time on screens of various kinds. You know, the average kid spends 10 hours a day on a screen. They're losing that sense of social interactions and being able to recognize voices and gestures. They're missing all of that. So if we can help them to regain that or learn that or form an understanding of how that part of the human element works, then we've got drivers here. We've got powerful people that are going to drive a new world into being.
Well, we sure definitely do need a change in our world.
Yep.
And I think that this might be our answer.
Yeah, and you know, we've got a new kind of teacher coming up now, certainly for schools and that kind of thing, but we've got another kind of new teacher coming up now. And these are teachers that really teach these kinds of children about psychic awareness. And it's not the old kind of teacher. It's the new kind. And I'm talking specifically about people like Nancy Baumgarten, Baumgarten, Nancy Baumgarten. She runs the Profound Awareness Institute. That's in North Carolina. You can find out about it through www.psykids.org. PsyKids is spelled PSYKIDS.org, so it's psykids.org. And she herself is a genius, and she's has found a way to teach children and their parents and anybody else who wants to learn what psychism really is, what knowing really is, how what nature and the imaginal world really are, and how you can work with them, play with them, enjoy them, understand them, participate in them. And her methods are the best I've ever seen. Haven't seen anybody that can top her. And so I'm really recommending for parents, get on, www.psykids.org. And if you can't get to where she is, find a way of bringing her up to where you are, and also help her to find a way of teaching other people to use her methods, because she's just incredible. And I've mentioned several times, we've got a few minutes left, between imagination and imaginal. They're not the same. Imagination is something you create yourself and you know you did it. Imaginal is something that already exists. You did not create it. It comes to you. You don't go to it. And we've got these matrices, we've got these dimensions, we've got these planes of the imaginal world. You've got your shamanic people. They work with in and through the different planes of being that are imaginal. These already exist. You did not create them. Remember, I was talking about night school. These schools exist on planes that already exist, and you can actually go there. And it doesn't matter where in the world you are. If you go to these places, you'll find pretty much the same thing. You can cross-compare them. This is what we find in the shamanic cultures when they visit these imaginal realms. So our new kids are coming. in with this knowledge, this knowing, this desire, this instinct that they want to interact with the imaginal realms. And I think that's going to be very helpful because, we can gain a lot of information that way.
I was just going to say a download of new information.
Yeah, right.
I love it. Well, we have really enjoyed listening to you tonight, and we are going to have you come back next month.
Oh, yeah, we get to do this again on December 18. Oh, yeah, and we get to talk about that book, Dying to Know You, Proof of God in the Near-Death Experience. It's one that really grabs you.
I'm really looking forward to it. And I just want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Yeah, I'm going to have all the family over. I'm going to do all the cooking this time. Finally, I'm a great-grandma. So
congratulations.
Yeah, I'm going to have 2 little babies still on their mother's breast that are coming.
Sounds delightful.
Yeah.
I would love to stop by and have turkey with you, but I'm kind of too far away.
Yeah, Charlottesville, Virginia, Jefferson's country. Okay, my dear, and a happy Thanksgiving to you and all your listeners and everybody on any plane of existence who might be listening. You betcha. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, dear. We'll see you next month.
Okay.
God bless.
You too. Bye-bye.